Hello, Andy Strong here. Welcome back to the Fundamentally Fit podcast. We are on episode 9 and today things are getting controversial. We are reviewing the Netflix documentary, What the Health. If you haven't heard about this, which I'm sure you have, you will be very soon. It's hit the papers today. It's online. It's been on Netflix since March. It's quite a controversial documentary. It's been in all of the forums and all of the places that I kind of member of and different things that I do for the fitness industry. It's been talked about for quite some time for various different reasons. And we're going to delve in today. I'm going to keep this quite brief. It probably will be a long podcast, but I'm going to try and keep it quite brief because there's so many different things we could talk about with this topic, but I'm going to try and give you an overview of what the documentary is trying to achieve. I'm going to give you a few of the pros, a few of the cons, and a little bit of an overview of what I think. Now, not everything was terrible in this documentary. Its presentation was pretty crap, bad, but there are a few things that it highlights that I think are genuinely quite interesting, and so many people out there are ready to just slate this documentary because of the way a lot of the information was presented, and fair play, there are lots of reasons to criticize this documentary, but in the interest of being fair, and in the interest of taking, like you should do with any of these studies, documentaries, anything like that, is looking at them from a broader picture and saying, what can we learn from this? What can we take away? And hopefully you'll have a few things you can take away today that will give you a better balance on what this documentary is. If you haven't watched it, listen to the podcast, go away, watch it yourself, make up your own mind, and then go from there. But I do suggest if you do choose to watch this documentary, go in with an open mind, but go in thinking critically, because there's lots of ways this documentary could lead you awry, and the simple point is much of this science is just not far enough down the road. That being said, let's jump right in and let's crack on. Otherwise, we are going to be here all day. So, What the Health? What is it? What's it all about? Basically, this documentary has been quite cleverly set up to take people down the path of how, or down the path of how all the different aspects of a vegan-based diet interlink to create the mindset, the lifestyle, the way of life, and the thinking behind following a plant-based or a vegan diet. Now, for those that missed episode number 6, where we were talking about vegetarian and vegan diets, a vegan is somebody who does not eat any animal products at all. Now, this includes meat-based products, so obviously no chicken, no fish, no beef. But it also includes all dairy products as well, so no eggs, no cheese, no milk, and it also includes any products coming from animals. So it would include things like honey as well. So that is our vegan. Okay, if you're talking in the strict terms. Now, if we were to take the lifestyle or the thought process behind the vegan lifestyle, the vegan diet, it isn't really just about eating this certain way. So you can have something, for example, like Atkins, where people will just take a whole food group out, such as carbohydrates. That's not really what veganism is about, although on the face of it, that might well seem to be what they're doing. And actually, the reality is it's not. So there are different facets to this. Many vegans feel that not eating animal products will reduce their risk of developing diabetes, heart disease, improve their health statistics. They think it will help them reduce their medication, it will help them live longer, live happier, all of those things we're all trying to achieve. Many vegans also believe that the processes that go into rearing our animals is really cruel, and actually a lot of the antibiotics and pesticides and things that are used in the feeds are bad for the human body and shouldn't be consumed. So you've got the animal welfare and the how that impacts on our body, and then you've also got the impact on the environment as well. So you have a big proportion of people who worry that the mass farming that goes on now to produce food for the human population, for our food chain, is having an impact on the environment as well, because as the population of the planet grows, we need more animals to feed us, and actually this is really intensive. More animals, more waste products means more carbon dioxide, and this all has to go somewhere into the environment, so the waste products also then damage the environment as well. Now, in a nutshell, that is the vegan diet, vegan lifestyle. Now, I could expand on that, and I'm sorry if there's vegans listening. I'm sorry if I've made that woefully short, and no offense meant there if I've missed any important aspects. But I'm 5 minutes in, and I haven't even started on the documentary yet. So that's the vegan diet, and this documentary basically is set up to walk you through each stage and each step of that thought process, and then right at the very end, they drop in that this documentary really is about eating a vegan, plant-based diet for good health. Okay, and so some of the things that I'm going to start with the negatives, finish on the goods, because it makes a little bit more sense in terms of what's in here. And some of the things I didn't like about this documentary, it had many misleading claims in it. They had lots of experts that were clearly reflecting the pro-vegan plant-based diet movement, and that's understandable if that's what your documentary is about. If it's not going to be an impartial representation, if it's a biased documentary, then obviously that's what they're going to do. But there was very little in the way of anything coming back from the other direction based on the science to the contrary. And I'm sure many will say, well, that's because there isn't any, but that isn't really being objective. What they chose to do, and I know they're going to say they couldn't get people to come and talk to them. I don't know the reasons behind that, and you can draw your own conclusions, as I'm sure many will. But what they chose to do was Kip Anderson, the documentary maker, every time he found out a new fact or a new aspect of his vegan journey, his journey to better health, from one of his experts, he would go back to one of the main associations' websites. So Diabetes of America, American Diabetes Association, for example. He would go back to their website, and then he would send them an email, or he would phone up the helpline, and he would ask them lots of questions based on a particular study that he was referring to and expecting to get answers back. And this was supposed to balance up the argument, to show that the experts that he was talking to had more to say on the matter. And this isn't really reflective or fair, because actually you've got a helpline where people just aren't going to be set up to answer scientific questions, citing studies they might not have read, and actually those people aren't really going to be qualified to answer those questions. And they all offered to put him in touch with people that would be able to answer them. He did eventually get one interview with Dr. Robert Ratner, the Chief Scientific and Medical Officer of the American Diabetes Association, which features later on into the documentary, which, to be fair, doesn't go very well for either of them. But each time he finds this new fact, he goes back to another main association's website, phones them up, emails them, gets very little response, or no one can answer his questions, and then uses this to kind of say, look, what are they doing? This is ridiculous. It's really obvious because I'm citing this one study. And actually that's the real big problem with this, is every time they want to highlight something as being positive or negative, the screen flashes up with a study or a paper. They flash a yellow highlighter across to show you the bit they want you to see, and then it's gone and it's disappeared. You've got no way of knowing what that study was. You've got no way of knowing what the parameters were around that study. You don't know if it's peer reviewed, although they referred to a few peer reviewed studies in here. You couldn't go away and check which ones they were. You had no way of following up on it. You were just expected to take this as at face value. And the big problem there, and we've talked about this on this podcast in the past, is that when we were talking about the vegetarian and vegan diet before, and it had been reported in the press that this particular diet, vegetarian and vegan diet, enable people to lose more weight than eating a conventional meat-based diet. Now, the problem was this study was into type 2 diabetics, and the meat-based diet was actually a diabetic diet, not a diet that was meant for average, everyday, healthy individuals. And this kind of disparity is really important, because when somebody is citing a study in a documentary like this, and they're making very, very bold claims, as they do in this documentary, you have to be able to know what the parameters were around that study. And they use this later on in the documentary. I'm going to come to it in a moment, because it's one of the other things I didn't like. They used that to their advantage later on in the documentary, to kind of knock other people's studies. But in the terms of the studies they were talking about, they were all represented as being unbiased, perfect, nothing to show that these could possibly be wrong. And actually, that's not balanced, that's not fair for people to make decisions. And actually, yes, the government recommendations are not always great. They're very often far from being great. But if you follow a lot of the scientific evidence, it takes a long time to come to a consensus. Hence the World Health Organization study, which kicks off this whole documentary. It took a long time for lots of different reviews to come together before the World Health Organization said last year, actually, we accept that there is a link between processed meat and colorectal cancer. The more processed meat you eat, the higher your risk of colorectal cancer. And basically, it takes a long time to get to that point, because these are real big, bold claims and changes to people's lifestyles that you're talking about. And to pick out, a handful of different studies and then just randomly say, look, I've got a study to show this, that's the end of it. It's just not good science. It's not good constructive thinking, and it's not helpful for people who don't understand that process that goes into those studies. For someone to just say, I've got a study, and nothing more about it. Unbalanced and biased, unfortunately. Okay, something else that this documentary dives into is very interesting. I've touched on it very, very lightly in the past, and this is kind of a pro and a con at the same time. So they highlight the links between many of the big associations, such as the American Diabetes Association, and their links to third-party organisations such as food manufacturers, drinks manufacturers, for example, and actually how a lot of the studies get funded by these third-party organisations, and how they're having an impact on what goes on their website. And this definitely is worrying. It's one of the more interesting things that came out of this whole documentary. But one of the big problems with this is that while, yes, those links are worrying, you have to look at this with a little bit more perspective. So for those with a little bit more of an eagle eye, while they're pointing out that it is very evil that all of these companies are funding research, we have to accept that there isn't an endless pot of money for this type of research, and sometimes, unfortunately, it has to come from places that are slightly less desirable. The scientists are still good scientists that are working on them. We have to hope for that, and we have to take all of the information provided with a pinch of salt and look at it and look for correlations. And that's certainly not my job, but that certainly is the job of all of these organisations together. That's why science takes a long time to kind of move forward with actual real recommendations. Now, here comes the tricky bit. If we accept that, and we accept that, sometimes there has to be money coming from places that we don't necessarily ideally want it coming from, and certainly there was more very disingenuous companies involved in the sponsorship of these studies and the sponsorship of these organisations that I felt were very disturbing. However, can we really say that there is any difference if your panel of experts that are promoting the pro-vegan movement, the health benefits of the pro-vegan movement in this documentary, if nigh on every single one of them, next to their name, every time they're flashed up on screen, is Dr. This, nutrition expert that, and alongside that is author. So what we're seeing here is each of these people are selling books, writing articles in many different ways, and they are making money from it. And in what way is that different to these other organisations' funding? It is still capitalism. It is still people acting in their own interest, and that is still not helpful for people. I'm doing this podcast for free, but I run a fitness business, so I have a vested interest in you, in what you do. I would love to help you become a fitter, healthier, happier version of yourself. I don't pretend there isn't a cost to that. You can come and listen to the podcast every week, see the content I put out on my Facebook page, and if you never want to spend a penny with me and you find that helpful, then I am absolutely okay with that. But I wouldn't pretend that there isn't a service at the end of it, and if you wanted to come and work with me, I would absolutely love to do that, because fundamentally I am a business. But pretending otherwise is a little bit disingenuous. So being ultra offended in this documentary that there are sponsorships and people putting money into these things, and then presenting your documentary where all of your experts are actually making money on the side by selling books, it's exactly the same thing, and it's disingenuous to try and imply that they are somehow very, very different, because they're not. I'm pretty sure that all of them, by being involved in this documentary, sold a lot more books on Amazon, and I'd be interested to see what the spikes were since March, since that documentary went live. So, those are some of the things that I didn't like, and there's many more. To be honest, there's lots of flawed premises. There's lots of very weak science studies, poorly cited. We can kind of go through lots and lots of those in more detail if we wanted to, but I just don't think they're going to be much benefit because it will just be, picking out things, being more angry. But let's look at just a couple of things that I did like about this documentary, because we're 15 minutes in already. But some of the things I did like about this documentary that I thought were interesting and useful. This documentary does a good job of highlighting the connection between diet and illness. And actually, this is something that needs more focus, because there are still lots and lots of people that don't make the association between what they eat and their lifestyle and how that really impacts their life expectancy, the quality of their life, and how those two go together. Now, I work with lots and lots of people on their diet and their exercise, and it still catches me out how surprised people are when you really start to get into it, how connected all of these things are and how surprising that is to them, and how little they genuinely actually know about it. People think that eating healthily and actually being healthier are these very disconnected things. It's also why we think that one superfood might give us like this ultimate super benefit, when actually we're not looking at the bigger picture and actually really accepting all of these things come together, and no one food is really better than the other. Some have some nutrients in, some have others. And actually this concept that we can eat all of this to lose weight, or we can eat all of this to stop us getting cancer. And a lot of this confusion comes from the thought process of, magic foods almost, because we don't have a deep enough understanding that all of these things are connected. So this documentary does a nice job of kind of laying out nice and clear that regardless of if you believe with their hypothesis and what they're putting forward as a solution, they do a good job of demonstrating that what we eat is having a big impact on our life expectancy, the quality of our life, the diseases and the cancers and the illnesses that we are all getting as individuals. And that I thought was well done. I thought, while I've complained about it as well, I do think the highlighting the links to sponsorship was very interesting in this documentary. It demonstrates how many of the big studies are funded, and it's important to make sure you know how the study has been funded. Important to know what the biases are, but this is across the board. This can't just be used in one direction. So they're using this in this documentary, saying, Diabetic Association of America takes funding from lots of these third-party companies, and that this is a terrible thing. But none of the studies that were cited in favour of the vegan diet were described as to what the sponsorship was, who funded those studies, what were their biases, were they from vegan backed companies, what were they looking for in the study. And actually, so it goes both ways. So but I did like that it highlighted for probably one of the first times to a mainstream audience that actually we need to be a lot more open-minded about where these studies are being done. We need to be a lot more open-minded about actually what these big companies do and how much impact and say they have on our lives, when potentially most people don't really realise that. And I think that was an interesting debate to open up to a wider audience. It certainly, I don't necessarily agree with everything that was put forward in the documentary, but I think an open conversation would be a good thing on this topic to make sure that there aren't misuses of power, and actually that we are getting the benefit out of what money is being invested, and making sure it's not being used to steer people in the wrong direction. And then finally, something that I think you have to take away as a positive, and while I wouldn't necessarily believe in all of what was said very much of what was said in this documentary, it does promote an alternative way to be healthy. And this is something I've talked about before, and something I do believe in, is that you don't have to eat a meat-based diet to be healthy. You can eat a vegetarian diet and be healthy. You can eat a vegan diet and be healthy. The important thing is that you take on the responsibility when you take on that diet to make sure you get the correct vitamins and the correct nutrients to make sure you are healthy. Because just cutting out food groups doesn't equate to a healthier lifestyle. You need to make sure you're putting enough of the good things in. And in my experience as a coach, cutting out out a whole food group in aims of being healthier is one thing. People may well stick to that for a while, but what they're less good at is actually putting the other things back in, i.e. fruits and vegetables. People really struggle to get enough veg, and if you're saying to them, okay, cut out your animal products, cut out your meat products, increase your fruit and veg, increase your proteins from plant-based sources, I know a lot of my clients would really, really struggle. And actually, I've seen this from vegan food groups online. Actually, you can be vegan and be incredibly unhealthy, just the same as you can be an omnivore and be very unhealthy. I've seen vegan food groups where they're living off of processed foods, like potato waffles and beans and all sorts of things that are heavily processed, that really aren't delivering any nutrients in the sense that a correct, a positive vegan diet would promote. So it is important that a level of education is needed for whatever your diet is. But it was good that this documentary does promote alternative ways to be healthy, but you do have to do the research with that. So I think while it's a good thing, the way it's presented in this documentary is not reflective of where the science is right now. So those are some of the pros and cons. There's so many ways I could go with this documentary. This podcast could literally be an hour or more long if I was to go into all of them. But some of the real things I just didn't like were how one doctor, Dr. Neil Bernard, he's trying to build up the argument for meat-based products linked to diabetes. And actually he says, America's got a problem with drink, it's got a problem with sugar, but they're all relatively small. It's got a problem with smoking, but that's relatively small because most people have quit or never smoked in the first place. And it makes some bold claims like this that are just untrue and just unsubstantiated and quite frankly ridiculous. If you look at the stats, there's around 17% of the American population still smokes. That's a huge proportion of the population. The American population is large, but 17% of that population still smokes. And to say that most didn't smoke or don't smoke anyway, to try and imply that smoking and cancer is a small problem in the States compared to the problem of meat-based diabetes is just not factual, is not enough evidence at this particular time to make a statement like that in the way that it is presented in this documentary. And that's then followed up by the documentary maker Kip, who then states that he's read one study that says eating an egg a day could be the same as smoking 5 cigarettes a day. Studies not cited, just nice flashy images on the screen, an egg and 5 cigarettes dropping into a pan. It's just there to try and scare people into changing their eating habits. And as I have seen with lots of people, you can't actually scare people into doing anything and making it stick long term. People have to want to change. They have to want to make these changes for the reasons that are personal to them. Otherwise they just don't stick. And unfortunately, what the health, for the fact that it has some interesting things in it and a few useful things that I don't think would be impossible that they would end up being true, I would say that the way it's presented is, unfortunately, it just uses too many scare tactics. It's about scaring people into making change. And the subject matter is serious. There's no doubt about that. But there just isn't at the moment enough science to really go into the level of certainty that they're trying to put across. That's the simple truth. Now, they talked to Dr. Robert Ratner, the Chief Scientific Medical Officer for the American Diabetic Association, and the meeting doesn't go very well. He doesn't present himself very well. And Kip, the director, documentary maker, he wants to talk about some studies that he's found that show that eating a plant-based vegan diet will reduce your risk of diabetes, and that isn't it terrible that there's red meat and animal products on their website. He doesn't want to get into this conversation at all, cuts the meeting short and says that he won't go into it, doesn't represent himself very well. But what he does say is that there isn't any science that's strong enough to make those claims at that time. And that really is the bottom line with this particular documentary. Despite how it's presented, there just isn't enough science to say for certain in either direction. Now, do I think we're going to move towards a plant-based diet in the future? Yes, I think we probably will. I think some of the things that come out of this documentary, they're not ridiculous that they would come true. But right now, eating a well balanced, healthy diet means not eating too much red meat. It means reducing your processed meats to an absolute minimum. It means getting your fruit and veg in. It means getting your fiber. It means getting a good amount of dairy in to make sure that you've got healthy bones, strong teeth. But it's about not having too much of any of these things and making sure you've got a good balance of everything. It's not a new message, but at this particular moment in time, there is nothing strong enough to say that we should be moving to a pure plant-based diet. Some will choose to do that, and that absolutely is your prerogative. But at the moment, for everybody to do it, the scare tactics used in here, in my opinion, are too strong, and the vast majority of people who won't actually take that message on board, they won't make those changes, and if they do, the vast majority just won't make it stick, because actually you need to take people on a process of education. You need to help them understand the changes, and unfortunately What the Health falls into a long line of other vegan documentaries, Knives Over Forks, Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy, and actually for the interesting things they put forward, it actually undoes itself with its scaremongering tactics. So where are we? 26 minutes in. It's just almost just way too much to go into for one podcast, to be perfectly honest. Trying to keep it concise, really, really difficult. But go and check it out. It's an interesting documentary. Take it with a pinch of salt. There are some interesting things in this. There's a few things we haven't talked about. So a lot of the animal welfare things I found quite interesting. All I would say on that, but we touch on that. This is an American documentary, so please bear in mind a lot of the animal rearing processes are different in the UK and across Europe. I'm not saying they're better. Well, some of them are better, most definitely. But I'm not saying there aren't any problems. But you can't take everything you see in this documentary and apply it directly to the UK, because we have different standards. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, with lots of the Brexit debates and the American trade deal, these are things that are going to be coming up in the future in the UK, because a lot of the things they do in the States we actually don't do here in the UK. UK has been for many years has been the leading authority even across Europe into animal welfare and making sure that we do it in a most humane way possible. So let us know what you think. I hope this hasn't been too much of an angry podcast. I've tried to keep it as concise as possible, but there's so many different angles you can go off with this documentary. Did I enjoy it? I can't say that I enjoyed it, but I'm pleased that I watched the whole thing. There were some interesting eye-opening aspects to it, which do make me question a few things. But overall, I just felt that for every good message there was 5 that were making, or basically were undermining it, and a lot of that came through in the delivery. And basically the biggest thing in this documentary was summed up in the first 5 minutes. The documentary maker Kip introduces himself as a recovering hypochondriac, and he basically explains that his family's medical health has been poor, and that he's been worried his whole life that he would get sick as well. I can relate to that. It's the same reason I ended up in the fitness industry. But he goes on to say that he's read all the books, he's used to take lots of supplements, he's read all the large organisations' websites, he exercises, he sleeps well, he makes sure he doesn't drink any fizzy drinks, he doesn't smoke, he eats a healthy balanced diet. And then he starts straight after that, leading into the World Health Organization study last year into the links between processed food and colorectal cancer. And then he says, I never realised that what we ate affected our cancer and disease rates. And he's a similar age to me, possibly a little bit younger. And in the first statement, he's saying he did all of these things. He was a hypochondriac, so he was super on top of his diet, super on top of everything he needed to do to be healthy. And he's saying that he didn't know that the things that we ate could impact our disease risk. I do not believe that, and that means that the whole premise is in the first 5 minutes of this documentary is utterly flawed, because your documentary maker is not being honest with you. He's not being honest with the audience, because as a hypochondriac listing out all of those things, he would not know, he would not understand those links between the two, and so therefore the whole premise is disingenuous. And that, unfortunately, is my not so glowing review of What the Health. Check it out if you want to. It's still on Netflix. Be on there for a while, I would imagine, especially with all the publicity it's getting. But let us know what you think. I hope this hasn't been too biased. I mean, I'm not saying I would never go vegan. It does intrigue me. And as I say, I eat a flexitarian diet, so I eat very large proportion vegetarian. I'm intrigued as to how I would feel on a vegan diet, so it's something I'm contemplating. but not through all of the reasons I've seen in What the Health, just out of my own curiosity more than anything. But let us know if you're on a vegan diet. Let us know how it's going for you. When did you swap? What are the challenges? Let us know if you enjoyed What the Health. Let us know if you thought, maybe you're vegan and you didn't like What the Health and you thought it was misrepresentative, or maybe you've seen another documentary that you think was much more representative of the vegan diet that you follow. I am Andy Strong. I'm helping you to eat smart, train smart, stay fundamentally fit. I will see you in episode number 10 next week. Have a fantastic week.